Yo, what is up, guys? It is great to see you guys back here on our new podcast series, What's the Call? I'm here with my boy, AK the Analyst. He's calling in from my phone.
Hey, what is up, guys? AK the Analyst checking in. If you don't know who I am, follow my Instagram page, ak.the.analyst. Super excited to get this thing started.
Yes, exactly. And if you guys have not followed my Instagram is sports.miks, sports.mix. Anyways, in this podcast, just a quick rundown of what we're going to be doing. Since me and AK are both huge Warriors fans, we are just going to quickly talk about the game, their first ever game that they played at Chase Center. We're going to go through that, and then we're going to go through NFL, all the NFL Week 7 games. So let's get started. AK, so I'm looking at the score right now, and the Warriors are currently down by 21 points, and it's been a pretty disappointing game for the Warriors. I don't think many of us had high expectations at all. With the loss of Kevin Durant and the loss of Klay Thompson, losing him to an ACL injury, we didn't expect much of an offensive threat from the Warriors at all, and even a defensive threat. That was lacking a lot. The Clippers coming in with Kawhi Leonard and actually not even Paul George, but Kawhi Leonard and Pat Beverly. They're firing on all cylinders, looking to absolutely destroy the Warriors, and they produced really well. So, AK, what did you think of the performance from D'Angelo Russell tonight in his first debut with the Warriors?
Well, I think it was kind of how I expected it, Mix. If you looked at the box score earlier, the Clippers outscored the Warriors 35-29, but the Warriors were actually on a very, very slow start. And D'Angelo Russell went on a little hot streak, had a couple of threes, had some great floaters. So I think in his first game with this Warrior team, in a new system, just everything, I think he's adjusted pretty well. I think he kept them in the game, especially in that first half. But at the end of the day, I think this team has a lot of missing pieces without Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. So whether they have D'Angelo Russell or not, I just think this team is lacking a lot of depth.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, AK. The depth is. I would say they are lacking it, but their depth is actually really, really young. And it looks that Steve Kerr is trying to prepare more for the future, bringing in guys like Eric Pascal, Jordan Poole, even getting in Jacob Evans in the mix. We saw what happened with the progression for Kevon Looney. And AK, I also wanted to quickly ask you, Kevon Looney's rookie season, he was injured for actually most of it, and it didn't really seem like Kevon Looney would be that guy that would help the Warriors this much, and he's definitely surprised us. He's racked down 9 rebounds against this monstrous Clippers offense. So, AK, what do you think of the progression of Kevon Looney, and how do you think he'll help the Warriors in the future as they look to potentially even make it into the playoffs?
Well, he was again drafted in 2015, and just seeing the progression of this guy year by year has actually been pretty exciting to watch. We know throughout this 5-year run that the Golden State Warriors have had, just going to the finals, even with Kevin Durant, they always lacked having a solid big man. And I can see they have hope in Kevon Looney. They re-signed him this last summer to a $4.6 million deal. They clearly do believe that this guy can become a big piece to this team. As you know, he's actually one of the few remaining pieces from that championship team. Today he ended with 3 points, but again, 11 rebounds and an assist. So, the Warriors losing Willie Cauley-Stein, not really having much depth. They have Marquise Chris. I think Kevon Looney is going to be pretty pivotal for this team, especially in the state that they are in right now. And, again, he left the game early today with a hamstring tightness injury. We don't know the full depth of that, but you could see as soon as he left the game, there was no rim protection. It was hard for them to get rebounds, and again, that's just another missing hole that this team needs to figure out, and they need to figure it out fast.
That's definitely right. Yeah, and speaking of the Kevon Looney injury, by the time this podcast goes up, he'll probably be set and back into the Warriors rotation. I do not think the tightness injury was much of a concern for the Warriors. It obviously did play a huge part in the Warriors' loss today. By the way, just telling you guys the score. The final score for the game was 141 to 122. The Warriors lose and they go to 0-1, while the Clippers rise to a solid 2-0 start. The Los Angeles Clippers are definitely looking like they will be one of the top teams in the Western Conference and definitely in the league. They are favorites by a large margin to win the NBA Finals. I think as soon as Paul George comes back, the Los Angeles Clippers will definitely be the team to look after. And me and my father were actually talking about this a while ago while watching the game. Looking back to the 2015 season and even the 2016 season, many of the teams had no idea the style of play that the Warriors have brought into the NBA, which is why the Warriors were dominating over the past 5 years. Now, obviously, it takes time to form teams into the style of play that the Warriors have, and it looks as if the Clippers, the Lakers, the Trailblazers, even the Jazz a little bit, they are getting this similar guys like the Warriors and trying to adapt to their style of play, which is why, as we kind of saw here, the Warriors definitely did not have a great shooting night, and the Los Angeles Clippers looked a lot like the 2015 Warriors, with a high shot percentage and excellent defense. Obviously, the Warriors will always be known for one of the greatest shooting NBA teams in history, and it's hard to match that. But I must give it up to the NBA, even the Rockets. Like, first of all, James Harden, can't forget about him. All these teams have done such a great job of getting players and forming teams properly so they can be an actual threat to the Warriors. So the last question I wanted to sort of give you, Amar, AK, is that which team do you see that resembles the Warriors the most this season, with all the new additions of Kawhi and Russ to the Rockets and Clippers? Which team do you think that resembles the Warriors the most as the 2015 comparison?
It's actually pretty funny that you bring that up. The Los Angeles Clippers come into mind, and I'll give you a couple of reasons. One, the depth. Okay, we know that the Golden State Warriors in the years of 2015 and 2016, pre-KD era, they were notorious for having a great starting five and a good backup bench. If you look at this Clipper team, I mean, some of these guys that they have, Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams off the bench, Landry Shamet, JaMychal Green. It's just all these guys that aren't Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. These guys are already a solid team. We saw last year they pushed the Warriors to 6 games in the first round, and they just added 2 superstars to the squad. So again, they do remind me of the Warriors, just even the style of their play too. Just very quick. You see Kawhi pushes it up the court like Steph Curry pushes it up for the Warriors. You see they got great rim protection. They've just got amazing defenders. I mean, Patrick Beverley's defense kind of reminds me of Draymond Green. Just the hustle, diving for loose balls, the energy, the aggression. This team really does remind me of a 2015 Warrior team, but obviously even better because they have 2 superstars in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I truly believe that this Clipper team is going to be a very, very big threat in the league.
Yes, definitely something to look out for all NBA fans. The Los Angeles Clippers are highly projected to make the NBA Finals, so definitely something to look out for as we progress through this NBA season. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to say welcome to the new 2019-2020 NBA season. For us Warriors fans, it's going to be a really difficult season to watch, but me and AK will be there watching every single game, staying with the Warriors. We're not no bandwagons. We stick with the Warriors, and we'll definitely keep it up with Warriors updates throughout the NBA season. Anyways, now we are going to move on to the second half of our podcast, and we're going to go through all the Week 7 games for the NFL. And the first game that we're actually going to go through, and I'm going to let AK take the lead on this one, is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos. Amar, you want to give us a little bit of analysis on that game?
Yeah, so pretty much we know that the Kansas City Chiefs win this game 30-6. They improved to 5-2. Denver Broncos 2-5. But the score is really not the storyline of this game. We know that Patrick Mahomes went down with a knee injury. QB sneak play in the second quarter, and boom, goes down. He finishes the game 10 for 11, 76 yards, and 1 touchdown. Matt Moore came in to fill in Mahomes' shoes. I'll get into Mahomes a little later. Matt Moore finishes 10 for 19, 117 yards, and a touchdown. This team, the Kansas City Chiefs, in a sense, kind of remind me of the Patriots. They have, again, depth. I mean, I feel like that is the most important piece of any team, whatever sport you're playing, baseball, basketball, football. Depth is a key component to success for a team. And even though Matt Moore is nowhere near Patrick Mahomes, I think he did a decent job filling in for him. Don't get me wrong, there were multiple opportunities for Denver to catch up in this game. But we know Denver is also just a rebuilding team, new coach in Vic Fangio. Joe Flacco finishes 21 for 34, 213 yards, no touchdown, no interceptions. He was sacked multiple times just in the first half alone. We know that O-line has just been struggling all year. Phillip Lindsay really couldn't get anything going in the run game. 11 carries, 36 yards, no touchdown. Royce Freeman, 10 carries, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Leading receiver for this group, Cortland Sutton, 6 receptions, 87 yards, no touchdown. Again, this team, they do have a few pieces that I like. Phillip Lindsay is good. Cortland Sutton. We know on defense they got some great pieces. They got Von Miller. Just even their DBs alone are really good. Justin Simmons. They got some good linemen. They got Derek Wolfe. So this team has some potential. But when Joe Flacco is your starting quarterback, I mean, that really doesn't help your case if you're the Broncos.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. AK, I think it's kind of funny how you mentioned depth on how it's so important for the Kansas City Chiefs as they look to progress into the playoffs this season. I was just saying on my own personal podcast that I think that if you are able to surround a quarterback with a strong running game, I think that gives all defenses something really extreme to look at. You got to, of course, watch out for the quarterback and the wide receivers. Obviously, you have to have great wide receivers. But if you can put a quarterback around a great running game, defenses will have to spread out entirely, which is why I think the great combination of, like Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt, when that was still a thing, the Chiefs were absolutely destroying teams. They were hot coming into the league. All fantasy owners wanted to get their hands on Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, I definitely do think depth is really important, but definitely depth in the rushing game. You have any great NFL team has to have a strong rushing game. It will complete the perfect NFL team. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now we're going to move into the second game, which I will start going into. It is the Oakland Raiders and the Green Bay Packers. The Oakland Raiders lose to the Green Bay Packers 24-42. The Green Bay Packers rise to a 6-1 record, while the Oakland Raiders drop to a 3-3 record. Derek Carr had 293 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Joshua Jacobs, a pretty nice game for him, 124 yards and a touchdown. As for the receiving game, Darren Waller, the tight end, coming in big with 126 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is it was a really high scoring game for the Oakland Raiders. And it's kind of funny because coming into this season, the Raiders obviously had Antonio Brown, and the departure of him and all the drama that's going on, which I don't even really want to get into, the Raiders did not look like they were in a good spot at all. We did not really see a big offensive threat from the Oakland Raiders, even a defensive threat after getting rid of Khalil Mack, which I think was probably the worst decision a team could make, getting rid of Khalil Mack. They really needed him. But I think the addition of Joshua Jacobs, the run game is so important. And I was listening to this analyst earlier who said that, I actually also mentioned this in my other podcast, Christian McCaffrey, who we'll also get into later, does not deserve the MVP award because his position is not valuable enough on a team, which I almost completely disagree with. I think that the running game is so important, and defenses tend to have a really difficult time stopping it because if you compare the defenses in the NFL, not many of them, as we would expect, have a deadly defensive line that can just stop an agile runner like Dalvin Cook, like Saquon Barkley, even someone like David Johnson, or even Austin Eckler, who could be used as a threat for the receiving game and the rushing game. So Joshua Jacobs played a really pivotal role for the Raiders in this. Obviously, now we go to the Packers. Aaron Rodgers was just nothing but perfect in this game. He had a total of 6 touchdowns. 1 was for a rush, and 5 touchdowns throughout the air, and 430 yards. The rushing game did not do great. Aaron Jones had 50 yards. Again, Aaron Rodgers ran in for 1. But you know what? Like I said before, running is so important. But if your quarterback is going to get a total of 6 touchdowns, you are going to win the game unless the other quarterback just decides to have a breakout game. But Aaron Rodgers just had a breakout game, something we don't see really often. The receivers that got a touchdown were Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Jimmy Graham, Jake Camaro, Aaron Jones, and Jamal Williams. So 2 of the running backs actually got touchdowns, which again, they are running backs. The running back position is so vital for a team to do well. And you know what? The Packers are 6-1 because Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, they can catch. And like I said before, the running game is so important, and you can have a stellar running back who can catch, who can run, who's agile, and who can thread the needle between defenders. You will be really set. Before I give it to AK, I just also wanted to mention that as for the defense, they only had 1 interception. So nothing big against Derek Carr. Nothing really his fault. I don't want to put any blame on him. It was just really the defense and allowing Aaron Rodgers to get 6 touchdowns, which is crazy. AK, so about this game, if you kind of want to evaluate, how did you like the contribution from Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, just kind of delving into the running back position?
Well, we know what these guys are capable of. I mean, we saw what happened in that Dallas Cowboy game. Aaron Jones, just went off against that Cowboy defense. So we know what this running back core has, the capability of this running back core. But I think it's interesting, too, that you brought up Austin Eckler. Is also one of these types of guys, one of these running backs that can also catch the ball. We're slowly seeing this running back position kind of, I guess you could say, morph into a receiving type position. I mean, we saw the evolution of the tight end position, where they went from blocking to catching, such tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, and now you're seeing the running backs. Catching is becoming more pivotal in that position. Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams. I mean, these guys had touchdowns in the air. So as you can see here clearly, the running back position is just clearly morphing into a receiver type position.
Most definitely. And if I feel like the Packers management can learn to use, well, they already have kind of learned, but if they can keep sort of going off of Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, they are going to look pretty good for the playoffs, and definitely something for the high-end teams to look out for come playoff time. We're going to quickly go into our next game. The next game is the Los Angeles Rams versus the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to let Amar take the lead on this one. Here you go.
Yes, so thanks. The LA Rams improved to 4-3, and the Atlanta Falcons dropped to a whopping 1-6. The score ends at 37-10. LA taking the W. Big game for LA. They make a big trade for Jalen Ramsey, and can I tell you, it probably did pay off. Julio Jones and Jalen Ramsey was probably the matchup of the game. I'll get into that a little later. But again, Jared Goff, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just again, typical Jared Goff numbers. More than 30 passing attempts, which is crazy and unheard of, but I mean, hey, it worked. We also know John Hecker, the punter, 1 for 1, 23 yards. They get a fake in to go. The rushing game, Todd Gurley comes back after missing last week against the Niners. He finishes 18 carries, 41 yards, no touchdowns. Jared Goff leads the rushers with a touchdown. And the receiving core, consisting of Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, and Cooper Kupp, Wood finishes with 5 receptions and 8 yards, no touchdown. Cooks ends with 4 receptions, 59 yards, Cup ends with 6 receptions, 50 yards, and Gerald Everett, the tight end, 4 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And Todd Gurley, 1 reception, 13 yards, and a touchdown. Just stellar performance from this LA team. We didn't know what to expect to see them after that loss against San Francisco. They looked depleted. It looked as Sean McVay was slowly figured out. But we know, again, that he's a great coach. Jared Goff is a system quarterback, but he does very, very good under the leadership of Sean McVay. Again, with Todd Gurley also being there, that helps a lot. They were just clicking on all cylinders. Tight end had a good game. Again, the running backs had a good game. And the receivers did pretty decent, too. They caught what they needed to, and they win this in a dramatic fashion. As for the Atlanta Falcons, just another disappointing loss. It's hard to even imagine that this team was in the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago. Again, they fell to 1-6 after this loss. Matt Ryan, 16 for 27, 159 yards, and an interception. As we know, he went down later on with a right ankle injury. So his status currently is that it's not that serious and that he'll be up and going against Seattle next week. Devontae Freeman, 7 carries, 19 yards, no touchdown. Receiving core, Julio Jones, 6 receptions, 93 yards, 0 touchdowns. He did average 15.5 yards per catch. So that's, fairly good numbers. The tight end, Austin Hooper, straight out of the Bay Area, 4 receptions, 46 yards, and a touchdown. This team has the talent. You got a generational receiver in Julio Jones. You got a great tight end in Austin Hooper. Calvin Ridley, a good receiver. Devontae Freeman, a decent running back. You got a good quarterback in Matt Ryan. But this team has just not been able to click at all. I currently still don't know how they even beat that Philadelphia Eagles team at this point. The defense just looks terrible. It looks extremely terrible. I don't even know where Devondre Campbell has been or where even Desmond Trufant have been. I feel like everybody on that team has kind of just disappeared. It's funny, Julio Jones actually went out and released a statement on around Tuesday or Wednesday and even said, Coach Quinn has done a lot for us. It's time to kind of give it back to him. That's not his direct quote, but that is kind of like a little summary of what it was. And to be quite frank with you, Coach Quinn's job position right now as the head coach is not looking good. Again, they do have the talent, just not executing out there. Mix, I just wanted to ask you, what have you thought of the Falcons so far this season?
So I feel like the Atlanta Falcons, even from watching them play the Patriots in the Super Bowl, which, by the way, as a Bills fan, pretty disappointing game for me and my dad, who was also a Bills fan, because, dang, the Atlanta Falcons had that game and the Patriots just blew by them. It was crazy. But anyways, going to the Atlanta Falcons, I feel like they are the team in the NFL that comes into this season. They have all of the assets. They have Devontae Freeman, Matty Ice, Julio Jones, and the new addition, not new addition, but I'd say new prospect Calvin Ridley, and even Austin Hooper. Their defense shouldn't look as bad as they're playing right now, but they just came into the season, and I think it's been like this for the past couple of seasons, ever since they lost the Super Bowl. They were supposed to be amazing, and they just come in and deflating all Atlanta Falcons fans. So I don't see the Atlanta Falcons really making a big run in the playoffs. I just think that teams are ahead of the game. They've got what they needed. Their management is not messed up at all, and it's going to be difficult at this point in the season, coming in halfway, for the Atlanta Falcons to look and make a turnaround and go deep into the playoffs. They may qualify for a wild card spot, but you know what? At 1-6, it looks almost impossible. Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones, the big three, they may have big games coming into the end, but who knows what happens? I don't think this is any short of a loss the entire season for the Atlanta Falcons. So that is my opinion on the Atlanta Falcons. Anyways, we're going to go into the next game. We're just going to quickly go, because this is actually a pretty short game. Probably one of the ugliest games out of the entire, all of the NFL Week 7 games. The San Francisco 49ers versus the Washington Redskins. The Niners, my gosh, 9-0. That not their record. That was a score. 9-0. The Niners win off of 3 field goals from Robbie Gould. And let me just say, before you guys go all on out on the Niners and, oh my God, they're 6-0. How did they not even score a touchdown? If you saw the water on that ground, you would have been like in awe, because I was as well. And I should actually mention, there were a couple of cool photographs that professional photographers took of all the water just rising as dudes were trying to tackle each other. And it was an absolute mud battle between both of them. Nobody could pass. Nobody could run. I'm even surprised the Niners were able to make 3 field goals in a row. That was crazy for them. But the defense, Nick Bosa was able to get 5 tackles and a sack. Again, I wouldn't have expected coming into this game the San Francisco 49ers, who play in such a sunny climate, to do well in how heavily raining it was in Washington. Like, it was absolutely crazy. Tevin Coleman on the ground game got 62 yards. Jimmy Garoppolo, no touchdowns, 150 yards, and an interception. The highest receiver was Kendrick Bourne, 69 yards. George Kittle only had 38 yards and 3 receptions. Again, I would not have expected anything from the receiving game because of the slippery weather. I'm still surprised that the Niners were able to get 3 field goals, but I think if this was any other team but the Redskins, this would have been a much closer game than 9 points, which is saying a lot. As for the Redskins, nothing from Case Keenum, 77 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. The Niners defense played its toll, but it had a lot of help from the weather. I would expect the Washington Redskins to kind of know how to play in such a horrible climate, because, that's their home. They should know, right? Adrian Peterson coming back with an 81-yard game. Trey Quinn, the highest receiver for the Redskins, 30 yards. So quickly, AK, before we move on to the next game, I know my boy AK actually went to the Browns versus Niners game, and just getting a glimpse of the Niners in real life. What are your predictions for the Niners? It's really interesting to see. Like, how do you think Jimmy Garoppolo will do coming into the playoffs? And do you really think Jimmy Garoppolo has proven himself as a solid quarterback and a star into the future?
Well, Jimmy G has been looking really, really good. Just making good reads, good passes. But it really, really helps when your O-line and defense are really killing it out there. I mean, we see their D-line is just going out there and getting forcing picks, forcing fumbles, just rushing the opposing quarterback. So that makes the offense that much easier for a team. And then again, as Jimmy G, I saw him in person against the Browns. I mean, even if he didn't have a guy open for a 15-yard route, he had a guy open for 5-6 yards. He's taking what he's getting, and he's satisfied with that. And coming off of an ACL injury, an injury that Jimmy G is coming off of from last season, and producing the way he is just pretty damn impressive, if you ask me. He just looks poised, he looks composed, and he has a great coach in Kyle Shanahan. Just the play design, just the execution. It's just so beautiful to watch in person. But yeah, I think Jimmy G has established himself easily as a top 5 quarterback in the league today. As to see where this Niner team can go in the future, again, the NFL is just crazy like that, where anything could happen, anything could flip. But so far, this Niner team is one of my Super Bowl contenders. They're one of my favorites to come out of the NFC. It'll be actually exciting to see how far the Niners go.
I definitely see that happening, and you know what? I'm a Niners fan, so I definitely have the right to agree with you. Anyways, as we move to our next game, I'm going to let AK take this. The Los Angeles Chargers versus the Tennessee Titans.
So Los Angeles Chargers versus the Tennessee Titans. We have here the Los Angeles Chargers dropping to 2-5, and the Tennessee Titans dropping to 3, or rising up to 3-4. Excuse me. This game, not really a sloppy game, but pretty exciting when it came down to the wire. Phillip Rivers, 24 for 38, 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Melvin Gordon, 16 carries, 32 yards, no touchdown. Austin Eckler, 5 carries, 7 yards. This upcoming statistic, though, will surprise many of you guys. Austin Ekeler, again, leading the receiving corps for the Los Angeles Chargers. 7 receptions, 118 yards, and a touchdown. Again, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen held to 4 receptions. Keenan Allen, 61 yards. Mike Williams, 47 yards. It's interesting. Earlier in the show, you heard me and Sportsmates talk about the evolution of the running back position, how pivotal it's been for running backs to adapt to catch the ball now, right? To play that receiver-type position. And this guy right here, Austin Ekeler, has proven that this whole season. Again, he led the receivers for the past 3 weeks for this Charger team with 7 receptions, 118 yards, and a touchdown. I personally think, you can make the argument that Melvin Gordon has been not producing well because of the holdout, but I personally think Austin Ekeler is the best back for this team. Again, Phillip Rivers has been struggling a lot in the air, but it seems like Austin Ekeler is always there to kind of help him out. He's like a safety blanket. Again, the Chargers, they tried to score a touchdown towards the end, and Melvin Gordon fumbled it in the end zone, and ultimately the Tennessee Titans, end up winning this game. Ryan Tannehill starts for the quarterback position for them, 23 for 29, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Derrick Henry, 22 carries and a touchdown. And the receiving core, Corey Davis, 6 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Jay Sharp, 2 receptions, 19 yards, and a touchdown. Again, you guys have known on my podcast, I've said multiple times, on multiple occasions, I don't really think Mariota is a good quarterback. I think he's kind of one of those one-hit wonder quarterbacks. Has a good season or two. Again, obviously he was hyped up when he came from Oregon, but he hasn't done much. And again, Tannehill comes in at the helm for this team, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Pretty solid numbers. And again, for this Charger team, dropping to 2-5, just their hopes of going to the playoffs or wherever they want to go. Again, just very, very sad to watch them deteriorate as the season goes. They're like the Atlanta Falcons to me. A lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but just not able to convert during games. And Mitch, what is your take on the LA Chargers?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. How they are definitely like the Atlanta Falcons. They have all the offensive assets. I would even say more than what the Atlanta Falcons have. Melvin Gordon was a Pro Bowl running back, and then, of course, he got that injury, and it took him a while to come back and produce. He still has not been producing well. I definitely agree with you. Austin Ekeler has definitely done better on the receiving end. In this game, he had 118 yards on the ground, which is crazy for a running back. That's like Christian McCaffrey status right there. So if Austin Ekeler can come in and produce that much, this game is not on Austin Ekeler. And I would just bring this game down to the defense. I think that the defense for the Chargers is really dragging them behind. I think that if the defense could get off the field quicker, stop an offense much faster, then Phillip Rivers would have a lot more comfort in producing well using Keenan Allen. And I think what Phillip Rivers needs to learn how to do is use Mike Williams, because teams are doubling up on Keenan Allen because they know of how great of a wide receiver he is. But if Mike Williams can get into that offense, this will look like a better season than much expected for the LA Chargers.
Now, it's actually interesting that you bring that up about Mike Williams. He's one of those guys. This receiver core right here, just with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, those top 2 receivers on that team. This could easily be a Jarvis Landry and almost like an Odell type duo right here between these two. But we've continuously seen Anthony Lynn as well as Phillip Rivers just not utilizing Mike Williams. It's quite concerning, and if anything, I think it is deteriorating this team quite a bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The lack of exposure that Phillip Rivers has to his wide receivers is definitely going to play a toll as the Los Angeles Chargers progress through the season more. Anyways, the next game that we have is I wanted to do this game because I'm a huge Bills fan, and I think that talking about the Bills is something that I really like to do, and I can actually do a lot of. It's actually the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills, and I'm not gonna lie, this turned out to be an ugly game from the start. The Miami Dolphins got 21 points, which is already amazing as is. But Ryan Fitzpatrick actually had a 300-yard game, which is pretty interesting considering the wide receivers that that Miami actually has. Preston Williams got a great deal of 82 yards in. So did Devontae Parker and even Allen Hurns. Mike Gesicki may only have had 41 yards, but I was watching that entire game. He made some of the most athletic plays against guys like Tre'Davious White, Jerry Hughes, Micah Hyde. There were definitely great games. The loss of Matt Milano on the safety was a huge loss for the Bills. Not something that should be taken into much consideration because they played the Miami Dolphins. They weren't really expecting to lose that game, although it was kind of decently close. The Buffalo Bills did go on a run, however, they scored a total of 31 points. It was 31-21. Miami drops to 0-6. The Bills rise to a nice 5-1, a surprising 5-1, I should say. Anyways, the Buffalo Bills, right? They were actually losing coming into the fourth quarter. It was 14-9. No team scored in the third quarter, and then the Buffalo Bills scored 22 points, and they closed out the game with a brilliant 360 catch from Micah Hyde off of an onside kick after the Dolphins had managed to actually score. It was a beautiful play. I actually suggest you guys go watch it. But anyways, for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen did look decent in this game. No interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 202 yards. Against the Miami defense, he's probably expected these numbers. I don't think it's anything that we should celebrate yet as Bills fans. Frank Gore only had 55 yards on the game. On the run game, however, Josh Allen was able to get 32 yards in, and Devin Singletary, making his first day back, had 26 yards. John Brown, the big wide receiver threat on the wings, did really well, 83 yards and a touchdown. This was kind of a slow game for the receiving game for Josh Allen. He kind of gave the ball out to many different players, but they all sort of got their own portion in their in like small chunks, meaning like Dawson Knox, 22 yards, Cole Beasley, 16 yards, Isaiah McKenzie, 11 yards. As for the defense, it was only one interception that they were able to come down with. But I think that this was just sort of a relaxed game for Josh Allen. Coming off of the bye, they did look really rusty. But the Buffalo Bills, they do play a decent team next week, which is the Eagles. I would actually, you know what? I rephrase that. The Eagles, they should be a decent team, but they are just not producing well. They're definitely like the Atlanta Falcons. And AK, I just wanted to ask you, same thing that I kind of asked you with Jimmy Garoppolo, because both of these quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Jimmy Garoppolo, very similar, just leading sort of a shady team and bringing them to almost perfect records for the Buffalo Bills in that case. But where do you see the Buffalo Bills going in as the future, and how do you think Frank Gore will be used in the offense as Josh Allen looks to lead the Buffalo Bills into hopefully a wildcard spot?
Obviously the Buffalo Bills have been actually very, very impressive. They've probably been I'd probably label them as the Cinderella story as of the season. Obviously, we know the two powerhouses in the AFC consist of Kansas City and Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. But I mean, bottom line here is these Bills almost beat Tom Brady and the Patriots. And, this team just defensively, I think that's, their first big strong suit right there. Defensively, they're like the Niners. They are able to, stop a lot of teams' running game, able to collapse the pocket. And then on offense, we know the capabilities of Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a good quarterback under pressure. Gets 16 for 26, 202 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pretty damn impressive. They put up 22 points just in that, fourth quarter alone. So, it's against the winless Miami Dolphins, but win by win, this Buffalo Bills team just looks more lethal, more dangerous. And, in the next coming years, I can see this Buffalo Bills team kind of playing in that third powerhouse ranking between Kansas City and New England. And it will be interesting to see how far this Bills team can go, not just this season, but also next season. Again, Tom Brady, as the years go by, he is going to end up declining. Father Time is undefeated. So, this Bills team is getting up there year by year. We saw them start with Tyrod Taylor, and now Josh Allen. They are, still, making big strides. And it'll just be exciting to see what the future has in store for this team.
Yeah, and I think that with Tom Brady in the Buffalo Bills decision, it's really holding them back from making a big impact in the playoff spot. If the Buffalo Bills were in almost any other division, they would be able to have an amazing shot at taking number one and clinching into the playoffs. But the fact is that you just have the greatest quarterback, arguably the greatest quarterback in your lineup. So it's going to be difficult for the Buffalo Bills to try to maintain, first of all, maintain this record. Secondly, get division spot. I think that the next time that the Buffalo Bills play the Patriots, they will be ready. And I'm actually going to say that the Buffalo Bills could have beaten the New England Patriots, just that Josh Allen in the third quarter had a big concussion, which is really depressing. It would have really been good for the Bills to stay undefeated and get a win against a division rival leading into the playoffs. Okay, so for our final game of this, our first ever podcast, we are actually going to go with, where's the game? Okay, we're going to go with the Ravens and the Seahawks. I'm going to let Amar take this, and let's get started. Go ahead.
All right, so Ravens come up with a W, now 2 games ahead of the Cleveland Browns in this AFC North Division. Again, the Baltimore Ravens rise up to 5-2. Seahawks fall to 5-2. This one ends 30-16. Again, Lamar Jackson 9 for 20, 143 yards, 0 touchdowns. That stat line right there doesn't look so impressive. But let's get into the rushing. Lamar Jackson 14 carries, 116 yards, touchdown. Those look a little better. And then we know for the receivers, Miles Boykin, 2 receptions, 55 yards. He leads the receivers in receptions and yards. Bottom line is this. The storyline is coming down to Lamar Jackson is looking like a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. We can get into that a little later. Obviously, there's different factors on that, coaching-wise, team-wise, and, et cetera, et cetera. The bottom line here is Lamar Jackson is just looking better and better week by week, whether it's throwing the ball or running the ball. I don't care what anybody says. You can call him a running back, you can call him whatever the hell you want. He's getting his team in great situations, and they put this game away with about 4 minutes left in the game. So again, I mean, he's just, to me, probably the best quarterback in that draft class, and we're seeing him week by week just becoming better and better. Again, for the Seahawks, though, Russell Wilson in his 8th year having an MVP campaign type of year, his team loses. He finishes the day with 20 for 41, 241 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Interesting note about that pick, Marcus Peters, who was traded to Baltimore after the Rams acquired Jalen Ramsey. He got his first pick with that club in that first game, and what a quarterback to pick up a pick from. Again, for the rushing core for the Seahawks team, Chris Carson, 21 carries, 65 yards, and then the receiving core, Tyler Lockett, of course, leading them, 5 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, bottom line for the Seahawks team, I mean, they've had a pretty damn good season, I'd say. And, in that division, the Niners and the Seahawks just make it really, really hard for the Rams to even compete. Again, I think the Seattle Seahawks are another threat in the NFC that nobody's talking about. Russell Wilson is an MVP candidate that not a lot of people are talking about. So this is a fluke game, I think. A game where they could have clearly won, just an off day though, and I think it comes down to Baltimore just having a way better day. Mix, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I did think that Lamar Jackson really proved himself in this game. It was a last 2 games for the Ravens were pretty shaky as they started off the season, looking really great, especially with Lamar Jackson. And I also wanted to mention, quickly going into, Marcus Peters did make the interception against Russell Wilson, and like AK said, what a great pick for Marcus Peters, starting off with a new team, better hopes, and obviously it was against Russell Wilson, so that's already great enough itself. But I just wanted to quickly mention that the reason why I believe Marcus Peters was traded for Jalen Ramsey for the Rams was that because, let's look at the stats. Marcus Peters, he was more of a laid back guy. He got more interceptions and he had more touchdowns, which isn't much saying. He only had 2 touchdowns. We're comparing this to Jalen Ramsey's stats, but Sean McVay did the right thing by getting rid of Marcus Peters because Jalen Ramsey is a much more aggressive guy. He had a lot more tackles, a lot more sacks in this season, of course, and he had almost the same amount of interceptions, which proves he's more of an aggressive guy. And I think that that's what Aaron Donald needs, along with this defense, and even Sean McVay. The Rams just need a very aggressive defense, trying to bounce back from a shaky season. So Marcus Peters is made his debut on the Baltimore Ravens. Again, the Seattle Seahawks. What a loss for them. I'm honestly really happy. Sorry to all the Seahawks fans watching this out there, but I'm a Niners fan, and if the Seahawks are going to lose, that gives the Niners a lot more cushion trying to clinch that top division spot in the playoffs. So I'm really proud of the Baltimore Ravens for stepping it up and proving their dominance against a pretty good team, dropping them down to 5-2. So yeah, I think this is a great win for the Baltimore Ravens, and Seattle Seahawks should be a little worried as the Niners look to move on ahead without them. Hopefully, a 7-0 record will shine upon the Niners as they look to beat the Carolina Panthers this week. Anyways, guys, that is going to wrap it up for our podcast today. I'm really sorry if we didn't get to any of the games you guys were looking for. We will definitely continue going through all the games in our next podcast. We just don't want to make this podcast really long. Our next podcast is going to consist of a lot more NBA talk. We know that we may be getting a little ahead of ourselves with this NFL talk because the NFL season has been going on for a while, but the NBA season has just started Tuesday. Kind of a disappointing start for Warriors fans. Not looking great for the Warriors, but we'll get a lot more into NBA topics with me and AK in our next podcast. We will also try to finish up any of the important games that we may have left out in this NFL Week 7. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in to our first ever episode of What's the Call? This is me and AK. AK, you want to say what's up?
Yep, just signing out, guys, before I go. I just want to say thank you guys for joining us on this episode. If we didn't cover something that you really wanted to listen to, just don't worry. We're going to improve on this. This is just the start of the What's the Call series. We're going to get better and better. And again, thank you again for joining us on this journey.
Exactly, guys. Thank you again. And please, if you guys really want us to talk about a topic, leave it below in the comments. Please share this video with all your friends, like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.